the rocket. I stood in the entrance. Her face, the veins, the chains disfigured. I was standing near a painting. Her hair, strands wound round, like thorns, a thong of barbed wire I saw. Wrought iron bars, as if a mansion, an entrance into a mansion in a painting, and in the door was this figure I saw. A woman toiled in the garden, which was overgrown, and she scorned. She looked scorned, askance at me, at all in this chamber, this house, this painting. I had been keeping watch on the old mansion. The young boy had informed me that he had found the diary. It was Emily's diary. She'd grown fond of him over the years, over the time. I remember that even though I'd never been there and I'd never met her, there were rumours that she'd had an affair. But these were all in the police public records, I was told. She had been seen. Yes, builders had seen her in her threadbare dress in this gardened area in this prickly peared old mansion where I found the entrance and glimpsed at the windows. There'd been glimpses at the windows. Builders who temporarily worked there had sent word that a woman had been seen there in the windows. It matched her description, Annie's description, but also that of my great-grandmother's grandmother in the House of Princes. I had checked. I'd seen the old photograph. It had been given to me by Aunt Ada was her name. I couldn't remember now. It was an old photograph that she'd given me quite some time ago, back then before the war, and I'd examined it. I'd looked at it, and its specks and pinpoints and needles. In the back of it there was a outline of what resembled an old crypt. The resemblance was striking. She was the same as the little girl, the picture of the little girl I'd seen. It was arresting, and yet they had had an examination of the DNA. As I have explained, the DNA reading was defective in the lab. That's what confounded me. I was a professor. I remembered now I'd had a blackout of memory of my identity. It was as if there was a black area right between my eyes and in the area in my forehead in the middle, in the temple, and I couldn't remember my identity. I mean, for goodness sakes, I do remember when I was in my mid-20s, Louise gave me Kafka's The Trial. I mean, had I buried the whole story inside the sort of vein of my temple, of my forehead, of my mind, like a cemetery, a mental cemetery, and it had exploded out again, triggered by a catalyst now. But the war had been just a wasteland of depression. The police records I had found, they'd shown that she had met her death. There were death certificates, but I'm sure they were false. Yes, there were other police records that said that there were no death certificates. So One was made before the war and one was made after, and others were made during it. And the photographs that existed, they're the ones that I'm telling you of now. I saw them. It was another of her solar plexus. Medical photographs and examinations. Her solar plexus and the nexus. It was marked underneath. I moved the photographs around. The pages underneath them. In the studio, I kept staring at them. The studio was deserted now, but then it had always been since the war. But no, I could remember going into the studio with the others of the staff. Was I the professor? I was trying to read this DNA, and I noticed that when I went in, I had to turn another page and see quickly, and there was an entry. Whose hand was it written in? It looked like mine, but then it looked like another's, and it said to go, to fly at night. Church could be seen. It was like navigation points on a map. Slow lights burned in the mystical tower, it said, as one by one the lights went out. I turned the page quickly again. I had to read this. It was coming back to me now. The time had been one night. The lights beamed, blurred, glowed. There was an opening. There, I saw her. There had not been a moment. There had been no warning. There had been only a moment, a split second, an infinitesimal half-second supersonic, and then I had been transported. Immediately, instantly, not to another distance, a place, but the immediate vicinity. Here had changed instantly, and I had seen her, been with her, Audrey, talking, speaking to me, exchanging stories beneath a canopy. I remembered it now. It was coming back like fragments through my mind, particles flashing in, forming large pieces of concrete, as if projecting up on a wall in front of me, a screen in which I saw the whole story again, relived, remerged. I read on, turning the page just quickly. It said in the pages here, had been written by someone. I knew I must. There were examinations of the handwriting. Quote, it said, she leaned against me, for her hair was dark, and her face was brown, full cheeks, her expression, her countenance, eyes white, opened wide, pupils black, smiled. Her hand extended to me as I lay beside her beneath the canopy. Her hand extended to my shoulder, and she lay on the white sheets, lay on the bed before me. We talked at great length. It was a white room that we lay in, with special little new doors and white windows. Her long dash, dash, dash. Then the words, they trailed off. I took a cup of coffee, gulped. The DNA match. I grabbed the words. They were written on pages before me. DNA match. They were written down like itemized notes. Professor, DNA. Switched ancestral genes. Encased. German. Double. Clone to base to get enough. Well, obviously that was the recipe that had been adopted and utilised and given the spoiled result. And I remembered now, of course, Richard Marble had said in that affidavit which he gave at the trial, I have used the serum and it has given a spoiled result. The connection with the spirit world, he said, the solar plexus, writing. Yes, I remembered that page that he wrote. The drink. That's what he had said. The central issue. As if he was telling me what to do, what to write, when to write, and how to do it. junk DNA. That's what had led me to it. It was in there that lay the secret of the family, who we were, the whole fraud, the crime. The whole secret was in there, and the Y chromosome. He'd written here. There was a note from Richard Marble. From Richard Marble, it said, "Don't you think this is being orchestrated by the Y chromosome?" Ah, that was astonishing. Fascinating. I couldn't believe it. I had to get on further into the diary and turn it. Well, what did it say next? He was giving me directions. This recipe, this whole map, tracing, it unfolded out of the annexure at the back of the diary. Quick, put it out now. He traced his fingers along the borders, stopped, leading to the west, back to the cross, the studio, the necklace around her neck. He fingers it, the beads of the rosary, looks in the mirror, the glass that is standing concave adjacent to it, the entrance. Well, I had been keeping watch on the entrance, the old mansion, in the painting. So the entrance was in the painting in the wall in which I had been watching. For I stood in it now, and obviously I'd made my way intuitively anyway, or perhaps the words of this diary were transmitting their contents to me and entering my consciousness and directing me, for that's where I found the painting of Annie in the doorway of the painting, the entrance of the mansion in the wall. Then I heard a strange word, a phrasing. It is... I was alert. I pricked my ears up. Yes, it sounded like a woman's voice. Suddenly Is it heaven or hell? The final ring of Evil and Live produced crinkles. I was 19. I could see them. They were unimaginable, indescribable hell. Bastards peeled off their masks of pretense of smiling and liking to reveal devils. And evil and live. Her voice trailed off. The next words in the diary were the estate plea. The estate plea. The court case. I see. Evidence items. There were many. There were the scars. There were the sword marks were missing from the top of the skull. But there were many other marks, scar marks, birthmarks, bullet marks. So obviously she was she. There was no doubt. So I had to look at my DNA results and reading and work out why they were wrong, for it was incumbent upon me, it was my duty as a professor of DNA in the lab to look at the facts, accept the facts. Now here were the facts. The facts said that there was a match that said that she was not she, Annie. And yet there were inescapable affidavits, many indicating, I shall list them later for you in the appendix of this episode. There were many which indicated that she could only be she. Nobody else could know what she knew. So instead of working back from a preconceived conclusion and amassing evidence and deciding that she was someone else or one part of the evidence was wrong, I looked at the facts, the truth, and I had to work from there and develop DNA techniques. And that's why I superseded the doubling technique, because it had failed, it didn't work. She had to be she because of the spiritual, physical evidence of human beings, and a machine was saying she wasn't. So how do you reconcile the two? Because both appeared to be true. And that is how we expanded the DNA tests and the technique and took in the extra areas to read and found the machine, the pirate machine that we have today. That was how we developed DNA.